what's up, you guys? Marty Schwartz here with Marty Music, and I'm gonna give a lesson on how to improvise over any type of chord progression. It's a question I was seeing, quite a bit the last couple months, or just a repeating question I saw. So I thought I'd give a lesson on that concept. So I hope it helps you guys. It's for beginners and beginner intermediates, or someone that hasn't been doing a lot of improvising. So it's for you guys. But real quick, you're going to want to get my Ultimate Guitar Guide, which has all the chord and scale shapes that I'll be talking about in this video, and it's totally free. So check the link below, get that Ultimate Guitar Guide. And then also, of course, I appreciate you supporting Marty Music, martymusic.com. I've got free courses over there and a bunch of premium course lessons and all that. So thank you so much. Here we go. All right, so a caveat here. There's no one way to jam over all chord progressions, but the guidelines I'm going to give you right now are the strongest and best ways to go forward with that concept. First thing I'm going to talk about is that about 85, and I'm guessing here, I'd say about 85% of chord progressions tell you the key with the very first chord. There's no real exact science to say 85%, but I'm guessing about 80 to 85% of chord progressions. You look at the first chord, and that's going to tell you your starting point to improvise over it. Okay, so the other percentage of them that aren't based on the first chord are typically going to have one of the chords in the song is going to feel like the landing spot, the home base, right? So if I play like a more rock kind of progression, like E and G and A, maybe a D in there. I'm going to loop that for a second. So the first chord was E. So if I can find E along the E string, and this is obviously a little more of a beginner lesson, but I think it will carry over to intermediate as well. If I find an E note, so open E, I could do that. But let's just go to the 12th fret. I'm going to put on an overdrive. And I'm just going to play that root note. And does that sound like it is the foundation of the progression? Okay, so that one, it definitely does. Now, the next little step, and we're going to start with pentatonics, but it does go beyond that. The major scale, minor scale, modes, it all still starts with this basic concept. The first chord for 85% of the progressions, and then the other 15%, one of the chords in there is going to feel like home base. And I'll show you an example of that next. Okay, so does it have a kind of edgy rock kind of aesthetic to it, right? Without knowing any music theory, that chord progression I was playing sounds more like rock. It doesn't sound like super... that would be a very major sounding progression. The one I was playing, E, G, A, it's very rock. So I will try the E minor pentatonic over that progression. And so I'd take my index finger on that root, and then I'm going to play across the minor pentatonic. It doesn't make you an amazing soloist, but it's the spot that you're going to want to start with. It's also the scale you're going to want to get most comfortable with when you're first learning And then 30 years later, you're still going to be using it the most. So that for the E minor pentatonic, I put my index on that root, E, and then I go 12, 15, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 14, and then the B string, 12, 15, and 12, 15 on the high E. And that's going to work over that progression. All right, so there's one example. An example where you might get something that's, without knowing music theory, something happier sounding, brighter sounding. I think of like the chord progression to Let It Be by the Beatles. That's not that rock, edgy rock blues kind of sound. It's like, without music theory, it's like happier, right? So that could be something like C, G, A minor, F, it follows chords of a major scale. You don't have to know that, but you can just listen to the aesthetic of the chord progression as a whole. C, G, A minor, F, C, G, F, C. I'll loop that now. Gotta clear my looper. All right. C, G, A minor, F, C, G, F, C. There it is. So this is another example where the first chord tells you the key of the song. So it's a C major chord, but it's got that happier sound than the other progression where it had a little edgier rocks feeling to it. This has a little happier chord progression feel to it. So the first chord was C. So you got to know the roots at least on the E string to start with. So an E note on the, a C note on the E string is E, F, G, A, B, C. 8th fret E string is a C note. So if I start there and play the progression, we're going to hear it does sound like the home base of the progression. Usually rings out a little better or, cuts, you feel it better with a higher octave, but these are both C, so 8th fret high E. Listen to that. So here's the trick though. For a more minor or rock or bluesy kind of sound, I would play that C minor pentatonic like we did in the last example. So that's not what the Beatles were doing, and that's not, it's also No Woman, No Cry. So what's going on? That doesn't work. Well, you can plug in the C major pentatonic. You don't have to learn a new scale shape. And so that's what's great about plugging in the minor pentatonic or the major pentatonic. And you can just use your ear to hear which one sounds better and start with the root note of the first chord of the progression. So the first chord was C, and I had the 8th fret E, right? But then when I played the minor pentatonic, it didn't quite fit you could kind of get away with it, but it's not really the full right way. So what you can do is plug in the major pentatonic. So that's C right there, and then we go up that kind of first position, or what I call the first position. Instead, we put our pinky of that shape on the root. So if I put my pinky on that 8th fret E string, and then I play that same shape below it like this, that is now the C major pentatonic for more major style progressions. You may stop and look at what I'm doing there and go, wait a minute, I learned that. That's the A minor pentatonic. Well, there's a term, well, I don't want to get too into music theory, but there's a term called relative major, relative minor, and every major pentatonic shares all the notes with a relative minor, and every minor pentatonic shares a relative, all the same notes to a relative major. And here's the difference. The C major pentatonic and the A minor pentatonic scale are all the same notes. I used to say they're the same scale, but you could start to get into theory arguments about why that's not true. But the A minor pentatonic and the C major pentatonic, the relationship of this distance, which will correlate any key that you play, it'll have that same relationship. C major pentatonic and A minor pentatonic share all the same notes. Here's the difference. The C major pentatonic, I'm playing those notes over a C chord. With the C note of that shape or the pool of notes, the C note is our tonic, our home bass. When you play the A minor pentatonic, you're playing it over an A minor chord or a chord that could have an edgy rock sound to it or a bluesy sound. A blues, A7 chord. And you play where the A note's the home bass, not the C note. So watch, when I play this over the C major progression, C, G, A minor, and F, and I play through that set of notes, you're going to hear it's what George Harrison was using on the Let It Be solo. I'm not going to play the solo itself, but I'll play through that scale and you'll hear that it's all the right notes. So let me recap a little bit. Take a chord progression, look at the first chord. What is that chord? Then find the root of that chord. So if it's an A minor chord, find an A note on the E string, 5th fret, and plug in the minor pentatonic. And if that doesn't quite sound right, plug in the major pentatonic. It's going to be one of those. And also, by the way, the major scale and the minor scale and the modes are half steps that are added to the pentatonic. So even if you did want to get more advanced with your scales and improvising, the pentatonics are still the same. So you could actually, for instance, if I wanted to play the C major scale over that progression, I can still plug the same thing in, but I know I've been playing a long time and I've studied, I've taken years of lessons and went to school for it, but you can do it in 6 months or a year, or even quicker depending, with all the information out there. I can take that same concept I know the half steps to add to make it the full C major scale. So let me just give you the statistics say most people don't make it this far in the video, in a YouTube video, but I'm just show you one example where it's not the first chord. I just taught All My Loving by the Beatles recently, and I won't play that song, but I'll show you the first chord of that song is F sharp minor, and it's not in F sharp minor or F sharp minor pentatonic. It goes, But what I will say is this is an example where the last chord is the root chord. So it goes through F sharp minor, B, E major. By the way, it's in E major. C sharp minor, A major, F sharp minor, D, B. And then, but finally it goes A, B, E. So I hear the last chord of the progression. And that is definitely the key. So it's E major. And I put in the E major pentatonic, and it's going to work. So that's one example. Another example might be not even a song that I'm thinking of, but like a song that's in G major. But the song itself might be C, D, G. So the other, most likely it's going to be the last chord of the progression because it starts with tension to resolve to that chord. So listen to this, you'll hear how it's the key of G. So what would I do over that? Well, I'd find a G note. I can hear G is home base, but maybe I try the C and it's just not quite working. Well, it's going to be one of the other chords of the progression. So for us, G. I can find the G up on, here, I'll record it. #15 fret high E. If I play G minor pentatonic, it won't sound right. Kind of works, but if I play G major, so I hope that made sense. Have fun and good luck. All right, I hope you guys got something from that video. I enjoyed doing it for you. Also, don't forget to get that ultimate guitar guide in the link below. It's got the chord, and the scale diagrams I was just talking about. So check that out. Also, thank you once again for supporting Marty Music and martymusic.com, the website where I've got all the courses, a bunch of free courses too. So check those out. Don't sleep on that. It'll help you. and appreciate you. So take care, and hope to see you again in another video real soon. See you later.